Let's use as an example the unquestionably biggest mystery of modern science. Why do men have nipples? What's the point? We ask that question exactly because male nipples don't seem to fulfill any function.
There was an article in the Scientific American that also mentioned this. Why do men have these organs? So is this where Professor Hossenfelder has got the idea from? Heck, even the answer in the article is the same answer she gave. Let's just say it's coincidence and no purpose. Probably. I'm going to use Hume, the atheist who responded to natural theology, to answer this one. Well, he would tell you that this male organ is very disanalogous to the whole universe. I mean, the factors of analogy, the characteristics that these two share, it's almost non-existent.
The point of the universe could be to create life in general, or us in particular. But it seems that the laws of nature don't care about us or anything like us. It's rather that they give rise to us by way of an accident.
You cannot just exclude things, you're still investigating it. You don't have the right to do this claim, by the way. Okay, as an empiricist and as a scientist, how do you know it's an accident? Have you tested other universes? Oh, Hume again. Hume again. It's kind of like saying math makes iPhones. Now, your favorite popular scientist, Sabine Hossenfelder, has made a video on what is the purpose of the universe. Has she presented smart arguments? She has, but they're not actually good arguments. Now, I have respect for Professor Hossenfelder. She presents this era of meta-rationale, which is highly appreciated in this pop science scene. So thank you for that, Professor Hossenfelder, and hopefully this is going to be a learning opportunity with good arguments from people who disagree with it. Let's watch together and find out why. Like the first half of this video, I'm just going to go with the arguments and get many beneficial points out of it. And the second half, I'm actually going to answer. Now, I do believe in God, but has her arguments actually debunked that somehow? That's what I'm going to test with you here. I'm saying not. I'm actually going to agree with some points, but I'm still going to say not. And you'll find out why. So let's find out what she said.
Weinberg's remark about the pointlessness of the universe always puzzled me, because what did he think we'd find as science progressed? Angels dancing on the tip of an electron-scanning microscope? An army of dark dwarfs that rotate galaxies? A message in the cosmic microwave background saying, "The point of all this is to praise the Lord, hallelujah"? Probably not.
Now, aside from the last example, which actually kind of makes sense to get us into the discussion, but the previous two, I mean, why even bring up angels? Why even bring up this cartoonish example? What should that prove? But the last one actually does help us to get into the discussion.
Probably not.
And then she says, probably not. How? Look, in philosophy, we need to be very stringent on the words. We're going to test everything. We're going to examine every word. Hopefully. You can't just say these things. Why is it probably not? Isn't science an experimental study? Can you really deny anything in science? Maybe the existence of an invisible dragon? But maybe there's like a bigger argument here. Let's go with it. So let's just continue.
When we ask for the point of something, we usually ask for a purpose, the intention behind an action or an object. What's the point of a doorknob? Its purpose is to open the door. Now you might argue that the point isn't to be found by scientific inquiry, and that maybe outside of science, someone or something has intentions which are the point of all that. That might be, but Weinberg was clearly referring to the changes that scientific inquiry brought.
Now, it started off really strong in the bad arguments. Now, what she's going to do in the next 3 minutes is that she's going to explain 3 types of purpose and intention that we use in science, even terms like function. Actually, that's one classification, about 3 meanings of purpose that we use in science. There's another classification that she's going to neglect. Now, maybe she's aware of it, maybe she isn't. I'm not saying anything. But we'll find out as we go that she's not going to use the other classifications, and they're going to make a difference. She would need to prove why she chose this particular classification.
But if something only has a point if it was intended, and the only way that intentions come about are conscious beings, then of course learning more about the universe would not reveal its point. We first need the universe to create someone who has intentions.
Why I'm saying this is a really bad argument here, if intention only comes from consciousness, you need a universe to actually make creatures that are conscious. What she's doing here is that she's begging the question. Or maybe yet, she only believes whatever exists is the universe first, and then you have conscious beings out of it. But that's a philosophical position. She needs to prove that you do need a universe. I mean, the point of the debate here is that the universe itself, what brought it in, what made it have a purpose. It's not like something from inside the universe that's going to come and be a conscious will. That's an assumption that she needs to prove. Again, why believe that only conscious beings come out from the universe? You gotta make the question as one point of purpose that we're not gonna need to talk about. But again, why even believe that in the first place? And then she's gonna snuff it out as a bad example. We're not done yet with investigating the universe, so you can't make that claim.
Science taught us a lot, but it hasn't revealed a point, at least not in the sense of a purpose or intention.
That's also a wrong assumption that only consciousness that can't be studied through science. That's how we should know, and since consciousness isn't of that type, then you don't have that study. So let's not call it science. Maybe there is an answer, but it's not science that's going to lead you there. Yes, it is an assumption. You're assuming that consciousness is something that's not being studied anyways. It seems like she's debating against a particular position, whether true or false. That's yet to be answered. It's a good thing that she said that this is an opinion piece. She's made this video to point out her opinions. It's fine, because she's not presenting actual proofs.
But this is not the only way we use the phrase having a point. We also use it to refer to function more generally, intended or not. For example, we could say the point of white blood cells is to identify and eliminate pathogens. The point of cell walls is to protect an organism. The point of earthquakes is to release stress. In none of those cases would we talk about intent, because no conscious agents are involved.
Now she gets into the second type of purpose, which is functional purpose, by specialists like George Van Wright and Jennifer Trusted. There is a classification of purpose and function versus intention. Now, admittedly, you can use them kind of interchangeably. That's a discussion to have. But she needs to prove why she actually made this differentiation. She needs to prove her case. She can't just voice the opinion. I'm going to prove the case as well. I'm going to say which one is better and why. But that's not going to happen throughout the video. The next thing is about the male organs.
Or we can look at some negative examples, cases where we say something doesn't have a point. Let's use as an example the unquestionably biggest mystery of modern science. Why do men have nipples? What's the point? We ask that question exactly because male nipples don't seem to fulfill any function.
There was an article in the Scientific American that also mentioned this. Why do men have these organs? So is this where Professor Hossenfelder has got the idea from? Heck, even the answer in the article is the same answer she gave. Let's just say it's coincidence and no purpose. Probably. I'm going to use Hume, the atheist who responded to natural theology, to answer this one. Want proof of karma? This is one of them. Of course, I don't believe in karma, it's nonsense. But it's just a funny way to say that I can use a Humean argument here. You know David Hume, that philosopher, that he always uses against God and design arguments? How about we use it here too? What you're going to find out in this video, at least in the first half, it's almost like a summary or a replay of David Hume's argument against natural design and arguments of natural theology by William Paley, but just in modern language. Let's use Hume himself here. Well, he would tell you that this male organ is very disanalogous to the whole universe. I mean, the factors of analogy, the characteristics that these two share, it's almost non-existent. So is it a good analogy to do in science? I don't think she can reach that conclusion. Okay, what about the second objection Hume also used? Well, isn't this male organ part of the universe? So it's actually a fallacy of composition. If my hand has 5 fingers, therefore I have 5 fingers. No. So, karma. That's the main argument that is used to deny purpose, that started this wheel of denying purpose from the investigation of the universe in a scientific sense. Now, William Paley was actually mistaken. Let me be clear with that. Heck, we Muslims think that their arguments are really bad. That's not the way you prove God. But again, the atheist doesn't have the better response, really. Just as bad. By the way, to be fair, this is the general idea about this second type of function, actually, of how people respond to teleological or purpose-oriented works. They kind of try to explain it in causation and explain away the teleology, in the sense that, well, there happened to be a causation that had this, that made this creature have this feature, which allows this thing to happen. So it's just a change of words. It's just a change of way to use words, really. It doesn't really solve the issue. That's just another way of explaining a part of the issue. So why do hearts pump blood? To make us survive. Fine. And it does explain more. You see, the thing with teleology,
which is that in physics, we normally don't explain things in terms of their function, not because we couldn't, but because that isn't useful. If we explain human behavior in processes or organisms, we often speak of functions because that makes things easier. It's useful. The point of brushing your teeth is to stay healthy. This type of explanation works in areas like sociology, psychology, and biology. But in physics, it usually doesn't work. We don't say the point of stars is to fuse nuclei. That's what stars do, all right, but it doesn't explain anything. We say instead that stars build up sufficient gravitational pressure to ignite nuclear fusion, and that explains why they shine, not the other way around. If we explain something by its outcome, by the function that it ends up fulfilling, that's called a teleological explanation. And while we normally don't use those in physics, it doesn't mean that we can't. So if we interpret the point of the universe as an explanation in terms of an outcome.
Okay, no, actually, it's not just useful. It is actually how you understand how you do these things where you brush your teeth. That is the reason you do it. The reason you book a ticket to fly to Paris is because you have a desire to. You will not go to Paris if you didn't have that desire. One thing that happens here, and this is a very hidden and subtle problem in all of this discussion, since physics is abstract, which is something she believes and argues for in other videos, physical theories are just mathematical abstractions described with an interpretation of reality, with a particular interpretation of reality that doesn't need to be true necessarily because she's an empiricist. Empiricist or not, this is actually the right definition of a physical theory, but that goes against many of other physicists, just like Steven Weinberg, or realists, scientific realists, who believe that their theories approximate truth, unlike her. So why does she take this position now, and why does she abandon it? So when you abstract enough, you actually deny the causal links happening between things. You see how a rock falls is different from how a paper falls, because they're different things. The actual causation of the wind on these things and gravity is going to be different. But if you abstract, well, it's just the same thing. Cause and effect just happening. You can just say it in the same way. So claiming that physics doesn't see it useful, duh. It's an abstraction. It's not the real thing, actually. See the hint here, which is reductionism. She needs to prove that again, right? If everything can be reduced down to physics, which is abstract, whether its theories represent truth or not of reality, she needs to prove that. You cannot just say, oh, that's how we do it in physics. No, that's not how we do it in physics. And hey, and let's judge all the other sciences, like even biology, which is a hard science, they need to somehow account for the way you do with physics. Why? It's just so populous, especially from her, because she does believe that these don't really approximate truth. You need to prove that. Look, it's fine, but just prove it, or at least show some evidence towards it. Now, talking about theological explanations in physics,
what might we be looking for? Once upon a time, one might have considered that a teleological explanation, the point of the universe, could be to create life in general, or us in particular. But it seems that the laws of nature don't care about us or anything like us. It's rather that they give rise to us by way of an accident. This is, I believe, what Weinberg meant with his quote.
Okay, this is assumptuous again. It's just like the first point about you need the universe to have consciousness or something like that. You're assuming the answer. This is the problem statement. You can't use it to even as evidence to prove your own case. You cannot just exclude things. You're still investigating it. You don't have the right to do this claim, by the way. Okay, as an empiricist and as a scientist, how do you know it's an accident? Have you tested other universes? Oh, Hume again. Hume again. No. Then how are you sure it's an accident? Why even make this claim, right? You have no right. And then you talk about theists being perfect, and then like throughout the video, purpose and will, and here's the point of all. Why are you making fun? You can't even prove your case. You're just denying your own science as you're moving along here. Of course, all respect to Professor Hosenfelder, but you know, truth needs to be clear, guys. Atheism and atheistic inclined ideas and atheistic-led ideas is eventually not the person, but the ideas are just logically stupid. I said it. Okay, let's actually give some answers here. In the specialist discussion of these topics, you differentiate, according to modern science, by the way, which I don't fully disagree with, but I do disagree with an important point there. You do take reason into the account of what you're explaining. So maybe you don't understand teleology as a cause, but you do understand that there is a cause which is prior, but you also have a reasoning behind why this is the cause and what this cause is supposed to do. So you go to Paris, so you book the ticket to go to Paris, or the rock falls due to gravity. Either case, it just happened to be the case causally, but also there's a reason for it, which is the explanation of gravity theory or your will to go on a vacation. You need to have this rational process into account here. It's just like explaining a door, why a door exists there. Well, you can say it exists there because that's the composition of wood and that's the laws of physics or whatever. You can also say it's there because it just fits in that shape, or it's there because somebody put it there. Somebody cut a tree. Right? This is just different ways of rationalizing about it. Now, where I disagree with this, you face 2 points of a dilemma here. It's either the blind dumb matter, concrete points, they actually do things, but why then order? They're dumb and blind. Or there is laws, but then laws are just abstract ideas, I guess. Or like, well, what are they? Are they real? Are they physical? They actually control things? Maybe laws is just what we do with things. It's kind of like saying math makes iPhones. No. Look, my system is not a closed physical system. My system includes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or God. He has will. Therefore, and remember even from the very first point of the video, he has a will. The ultimate will, actually. And therefore we can have will too. So the blind dumb matter, that's not an enclosed system really, which is an empirical thing that you actually need to prove, scientifically by the way, which you actually don't, especially people of the meta-rationale like Hossenfelder, who know about these things, they just don't go to their job every day, they actually try to think about these things. They know that you can't actually prove that scientifically, according to philosophy of science and the research methodology, you can't. So you do have God. That's why you have will. That's why there are laws in the first place.